The snow fell in thick, heavy flakes that December evening, the kind that muffled the city's usual noise and made everything feel isolated and still. Claire Bennett sat alone inside a bus shelter, pressed against the cold plexiglass, arms wrapped tightly around herself as she tried to preserve what little warmth remained in her body. She was 28 years old, with blonde hair falling in tangled waves past her shoulders, and she wore a thin olive dress meant for indoor warmth. Not for surviving a snowstorm, a worn brown bag rested beside her on the bench. Inside it was everything she owned now, a change of clothes, a few photographs, and the divorce papers her husband had handed her just 3 hours earlier. Claire stared at those papers through the open zipper and felt the numbness inside her deepen. 3 years of marriage had ended in a single afternoon because her body had failed to do the one thing her husband decided mattered most. If this story already feels heavy, take a second to like the video. It helps Lonja Tales reach people who need stories like this. She had tried to reason with Marcus. She talked about adoption, about fertility treatments, about building a family in a different way, but Marcus didn't want alternatives. He wanted a child that came easily, and when that didn't happen, he wanted out. He called her defective. He told her she was useless. Then he handed her divorce papers and told her to leave his house immediately. Now she had nowhere to go. Her parents had passed away years ago. Most of her friendships had faded during a marriage where Marcus insisted she focus solely on being a wife. Her cousin was overseas for 2 weeks. The women's shelter was full, and the little money Claire had might cover a week in a cheap motel if she was lucky. So she sat there, watching the snow fall and the city move around her, wondering how her life had collapsed so completely in a single day. She didn't notice the man until he was standing just a few feet away. He was tall, wearing a dark navy peacoat, with 3 children bundled in winter jackets clustered around him. 2 boys stood on either side of a small girl in a bright red coat. The man paused near the shelter, his eyes taking in Claire's thin dress, her shaking hands, and the worn bag at her feet. She looked away. She didn't want to see pity. "Excuse me," he said gently. "Are you waiting for a bus?" Claire nodded. Even though she knew the last bus on this route had left 20 minutes earlier, "It's 12 degrees out here," he said. "You don't have a coat." "I'm fine," she replied. Though her voice shook with cold and exhaustion, the little girl tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy." "She's freezing," one of the boys nodded. "You always say we should help people who need it." The man crouched down so he was at Claire's level. "My name is Jonathan. Reed, these are my kids. We live 2 blocks from here." He hesitated before continuing. "I can't let you stay out here tonight. Please come with us if you want to leave afterward. I'll call you a cab." Claire wanted to refuse. She should have refused, but she thought about the cold, the empty night ahead, and the very real possibility that she wouldn't make it until morning. "Okay," she whispered. Jonathan immediately took off his coat and placed it around her shoulders, leaving himself in just a sweater. Then they walked through the snow together, a quiet procession, until they reached a 2-story house glowing warmly against the night inside. The house felt alive. Children's artwork covered the refrigerator. Toys were neatly organized along the living room walls. Heat wrapped around her like a forgotten memory. Jonathan helped Claire onto the couch and wrapped her in a blanket while the children ran upstairs to change. He returned with a thick sweater and warm socks. "They were my wife's," he said quietly. "She passed away 18 months ago." Claire changed, ate warm food, and drank hot chocolate at the kitchen table while the children worked on homework nearby. The normalcy of it all made her chest ache. Later that night, after the house had gone quiet, Jonathan sat across from her with a cup of tea. "You don't have to explain anything," he said gently, "but if you want to talk, I'm here." Claire told him everything, the years of trying, the doctor's words, the way Marcus grew distant and resentful, the divorce, the words that had cut the deepest. He said I was broken, she whispered, that I failed as a wife. Jonathan was quiet for a long moment before he spoke. He's wrong. He told her about his own journey, about years of infertility, about choosing adoption, about loving children who didn't share his blood but shared his heart. The inability to conceive doesn't make you broken. He said, it just means your path looks different at this point. I want to know what you think. Do you believe someone's worth is tied to what their body can or cannot do? Tell me in the comments. Something inside Claire began to loosen. Days turned into weeks as the snow lingered. Claire stayed in the guest room and slowly became part of the household. She helped with meals, homework, and daily routines. The children accepted her with an ease that surprised her. Jonathan noticed the change in her. The way her laughter returned, the way she began talking about the future again one evening. He offered her a job, not as charity, but as help. He genuinely needed room, board, and a fair salary. Giving her time to rebuild her life, she accepted. Months passed. Claire enrolled in college. She found purpose again. She found herself smiling without effort. Then one evening, Jonathan told her the truth, that he had fallen in love with her, not because she filled a role, but because she was kind, strong, and still standing after being told she had no worth. Tears filled her eyes as she admitted she loved him too. Jonathan took her hand. I already have a family. He said, I don't need you to give me children. I need a partner to share the life I already have. If stories about healing, second chances, and quiet strength matter to you, make sure you subscribe to Lonja Tales. We share stories that stay with you. They married, with the children proudly standing beside them. Years later, at Emily's graduation, Claire listened as her daughter spoke about a woman who had once been discarded and had found her way into a family that needed her just as much as she needed them.